CO alarms, EMS calls, just the whole variety. Most calls, honestly, are handled by the crew that's on duty. In the event that we have a structural alarm or a rescue alarm, the all call is struck. That meaning that all off duty and volunteer firefighters are dispatched to respond to the call. This is how we're able to get our staffing at the scene that's needed. In addition to that, because of staffing problems, we have automatic mutual aid that's also responding to our city anytime we have a reported structure fire. That aid is coming from New Brighton, Rochester, and Big Beaver initially, and then we'll call for additional help if we need it. Now, as far as any questions on the operations of the fire department?
Yeah, Mark, Jerry Fort. Hope you get better soon.
Oh, thank you.
My first question is, as you well know, the fire department is a costly endeavor, but one that we feel that is necessary in the city. What can you, as a fire chief, and what can the city do to push along the idea of a regional fire department?
Well, we've actually, we're already starting that process. Our fire department has formed a committee, and this is just in the initial phase. Our next step in this is to come to the city with this idea. But we have formed a committee of both officers and firefighters, all ranks, both paid and volunteer. And we would like to proceed with looking into regionalization. The first step, of course, on our end is to meet with our city officials to get them on board. And then at that point, I think we're going to need to have a meeting among all of our communities around us. And when I say all of our communities, I think we need to go far, not just near. We need to open this meeting up to all the departments. And I could tell you there's going to be ones that are not going to be interested. This is a hard thing to sell. However, it's a necessity. It's got to the point where all fire departments have got to the point where none of us can provide the service, especially a structure fire. None of us have the manpower today. And in addition to that, we have a lot of departments around us that sometimes don't even answer the call. So the thing is, we've got to the point where we have to proceed with this. Now, we can't make anyone join in on this. Sorry. However, we need to at least open up the discussion. We need to get the state involved. They do have funding for the talks of regionalization and the study, moving forward with conducting a study. This needs to happen. Who knows where it's going to go? I can tell you, like I said, it's going to mean getting both the fire departments and firefighters on board, as well as the municipalities. I don't know what's going to be the hardest. I know we work with fire departments right now that are on board. We feel that are on board for this, that want to see this. However, I'm not sure the municipalities are going to be on board, because when you look at our fire department compared to an all volunteer fire department, our fire department's much more costly. And the whole idea of regionalization is going to be to share the cost among all the municipalities. And what that's going to mean is that's going to raise what most municipalities are putting into their fire department. and I think we're going to get a kickback on that. I really do. Because the only fair way to do this, excuse me, is to share the cost equally. If a person in Beaver Falls has to pay, let's say $25 a year for fire protection, a person in Eastvale or Doherty Township should have to pay the same. And that's going to be a challenge. There's going to be a lot of challenges. There's going to be a lot of hoops to have to jump through, but we got to start. We've been talking about this. We've talked about it among our mutual aid departments, and the day has come where I just don't think the fire service in another couple years is going to be sustainable. It's just not. I see it now, and it's to the point where it's something has got to change. If nothing changes, it's going to be a crisis in a couple years. I'm not even saying 5 years. It's to the point now. We've been talking about it. We've been kicking this can down the road. We can keep kicking the can down the road. Nothing's getting better, but this is a start. So this is the thing that I hope that answers your question, Jerry.
Yeah, it does. And Mike, is there anything that the state can do to help us in this matter?
The Department of Community and Economic Development offers technical assistance to fire companies, fire departments, police departments, public works departments, where we bring in what we call a peer consultant, who is a practitioner in the field within that specialization. Normally, there's no cost for the technical assistance to the municipality. We would pay the peer consultant for hours that they would incur. Right now, there will be limitations on travel because I, as a state employee, am unable to travel, at least until July. And the peer consultants really become an extension of us with regards to the work that they do. So they won't be able to travel either. So it would be a virtual engagement, so to speak. Mark,
Yes.
and maybe Doug, Jerry, if you know, have you already submitted what's called a letter of intent to my department in Harrisburg for the technical assistance to look at the regionalization of the paid and volunteer fire departments in the region?
Mike, I got the information. We were waiting to after the first of the year
Okay,
even start that. We weren't going to start that toward the end of the year with the holidays and everything. So I do have all the information, and I will work with our city manager on beginning that process and submitting that.
yeah, I appreciate that. What it would take is not only the governing bodies of the municipalities, city council in Beaver and the township board of supervisors, borough council, if you have any first-class townships involved, that would be the board of commissioners. Each of the governing bodies would have to adopt a letter of intent requesting technical assistance for this undertaking, along with the volunteer fire departments, as you know, are separate, nonprofit organizations.
Right.
So that would all go to my Harrisburg office. I believe there's a fax number on the top right corner of the letter of intent. Once it's adopted, and it's adopted by the governing bodies by just a simple motion. You don't need a resolution. It's just a motion made, it's seconded, and then there's a roll call vote. As long as a majority approves it, then it's legitimate. It's a legitimate official request. And then Manager Clay, who handles these types of requests in Harrisburg, will get back to the parties. There may be a backup in requests based upon the number of requests that we have, because we have a limited number of fire peer consultants, but at least get the request in to get into the queue, so to speak, to get you in line to get our assistance. And as this undertaking rolls out, when you're at a point ready for implementation, we would entertain a request for funding to help implement the regionalization or combining of paid and volunteer fire departments. So
Right.
I know it's a long answer to a short question, but
No, Mike, how long does it usually take from the point of submission to actually get to the point where we're going to sit down and meet? What, the reason I'm asking that question is because this subject obviously is a very, very touchy subject with a lot of people. And I just don't think virtual meetings are going to work for this. I think virtual meetings, if we have to have virtual meetings, I don't think it's going to get off the ground. I'm going to be honest with you. I think there's going to be a lot of questions, and asking questions in these type of meetings are difficult at best. And I think on a subject on this matter, I don't see a lot of people entertaining it. I'm just going to be honest. I know the players involved, and I think if we put everybody on a screen, we're going to see failure.
Well, I would at least put the request in and see how it unfolds from there.
Okay.
You may be assigned a peer consultant, a fire specialist that can maybe give you some guidance
Right.
and work behind the scenes. But given I can appreciate what you're saying, Mark, about the hesitation
Right.
of doing virtual meetings and just the uncomfortableness of it. But I
Yeah.
would at least get in line for put the request in and see how it goes from there.
Okay. Sounds good. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Michael Anderson, who's in the room with us, has a question.
Mark, the question I have for you is, with everything you presented tonight, what do you think? Do you think if the city moves to a home rule charter or stays with the class 3? If moving to the home rule charter is going to hurt the fire department, or do you see it as a benefit?
Well, I always look at things on a positive note. I would hope it only strengthens the fire department. I mean, moving forward, I think anything that the city does and its departments, we need to strengthen those departments. So I don't think it's going to hurt the fire department. I never did. I know there was a lot of talk out in the street because it got back to my firefighters and myself that the city's trying to do away with the paid fire department with this and so forth. But I never seen it that way. I don't see it that way.
Well,
I think
move to a volunteer department.
what's that again?
The city does have the option to move to a volunteer department with the home rule charter.
But that's
Yeah.
something we
So
all
that's-
always didn't want to see happen.
Yeah, nobody wants.
Nobody wants that.
But you should understand that's just not something that.
Yeah, it's something that I'll be honest with you. I don't think you want to see happen because I think you would see our situation is dire as most other communities that don't have paid firemen. It's a crapshoot. If your house is on fire and you want to roll the dice, that's what you get. I hate to say it. I think we need to form a stronger, larger fire department that's being funded by multiple municipalities. We need to add paid firefighters, but adding paid firefighters are going to be funded through not just the city of Beaver Falls, but all the communities involved. That's the only way the fire service is going to survive. You can see this across the state. I'm sure Michael, Mr. Foreman will agree. And it's at no fault of the volunteer fire service. It's just volunteer firefighters are, there's not many left in it. And we're fortunate to still have a fairly strong volunteer department, but it's those volunteer firefighters are only available certain hours of the day. A fire can occur at any time. And I know, sure, you could move to a volunteer fire department. I would strongly not recommend that, though.
I don't think, at least with this committee, no one wants to see that, but you should be aware that with the home rule charter, the city would have that option.
I understand that.
Well, the city has the option regardless of whether you adopt a home rule charter or not.
Exactly.
The two are really mutually exclusive and independent of one another. And the home rule charter would not impact one way or another the direction that the fire service goes within the city and even, beyond the borders. Again, that's something separate and apart from the home rule charter.
Well, it's listed in at least that's what I read. That under the home rule charter, the city has that option. But as a third-class city, they do not have that option.
You do.
Is that correct or incorrect?
I don't necessarily, I've not read that or seen that.
Okay,
Yeah, the third class city, you can have volunteer. Greensburg's a good example. They're all volunteer. Their entire company's volunteer. And they're a third class city. So it doesn't really have to do with the codes. Now you do have to, I mean, that's getting into the weeds. You do have to do a referendum if you want to eliminate your paid fire department.
Mark, how many paid and volunteers do we have?
We have 9 full-time firefighters, and we have 23 volunteer firefighters.
And the 9 are part-time, some of them are part-timers, right?
No, they're all full-time.
Are all full? Okay.
We have positions open on the part-time that we need to hire. But right now we have no part-time firemen. We do have to hire. Our list that we just formed last year, we only have 2 people on it and just a couple issues with that. So that's something we have to work through.
All right.
Are your
thank you.
firefighters civil service? Are they civil service tested?
Yes, they are.
Mark, this is Kirsten. Can you speak at all to, do you know, and maybe if not you, maybe Debbie or Michael can speak to the effect that if we were not to adopt home rule charter and we found ourselves in Act 47, what impact that would have on the fire department?
Well, many cities have went Act 47, most of which have paid fire departments. I don't know of any city that went Act 47 that eliminated their paid firefighters. I mean, examples of that are the city of Pittsburgh, city of Newcastle, city of Aliquippa, Ambridge. So it's just something that you have to work through, but it doesn't mean an instant elimination of the paid fire department.
Good.
If there-
Again,
Sorry, I was gonna just ask if there were no more questions about the fire and could we just keep it moving forward and get into the code department and then into the police department?
Yeah. As far as the code, as most of you probably know, last year, at the beginning of last year, we, city officials and myself, discussed moving forward with continuing to move the code enforcement duties into the fire department. And at that point, I was asked to also manage the code office. In March, I did take over the code office, as well as we have 2 full-time firefighters that pretty much work out of the code office. They're code enforcement officers. They're Jason Taggart and Kurt Ellison. So I guess to sum it up, it was a very difficult transition, and it was difficult because the timing was really bad. The week after I took over the office, that's when COVID hit, and we shut the city down for at least a couple months. Our office staff was basically sent home. The office was closed down. During that time, we did have several things such as building permits and things that were still going on, but we worked through it. At the point where everybody came back to work, it was, I believe, 2 weeks later, and Eva Rose, who was the, she was one of the, who was in charge of the code office prior to my taking over. She just abruptly left, did not provide any training or knowledge to me on the runnings of that department. It was never, like I said, the timing was bad. The little bit of time that Eva was there, she took time off, sick leave or vacation time. So it just caused a lot of trying to figure this out. Basically, with the help of our city solicitor, city manager, and other people have helped me along the way. But basically, it meant trying to figure it out from scratch. And I'll be honest with you, we're still figuring it out. But we're coming a long way. I think we're making progress. Like I said, our two firefighter code enforcement officers are out there. In my opinion, we're making a difference. I always said that with code enforcement, you can judge how well you're doing by seeing change in the community. If you're not seeing change, then obviously things need to change more within that department. So that's how you always judge how well code enforcement's doing, by what you're seeing in the community. So it's my hope that, we continue to move forward. One of our main issues that we have is blight. Unfortunately, with blight, and we've got, well over 300 properties that fit that description. Unfortunately, most of these properties are on a county repository where we have nobody to go after. That's what people don't understand. People always complain about why nothing's getting done about this or nothing gets done about that, but it takes money. And unfortunately, the city doesn't have the money to demolish these structures on their own. So it takes looking for grants. We've already applied for one grant in hopes to get 10 buildings that were damaged by fire demolished. But it's gonna be a rough road. The one thing that has been happening, and I think we're fortunate, is over the past probably 8 months to a year, we've had a lot of properties that are being sold from the repository list, and people are actually fixing these buildings up. So we encourage that, and we hope that continues, because I think if that does continue, if we can get any of these properties back on the tax rolls, but more importantly, back into meeting code and occupied, so they're not blight in a community. And right now we have at least 10 people that are working hard on fixing these houses up. So we need to keep encouraging that. That's one avenue that we need to keep going. We need to keep looking for funding for demolition. Because that's one of the hardest things until we clean the community up. You look at Mount Washington area, where we used a combination of the National Guard come in and assisted us. Our fire department burnt down probably 15 structures up there. We continue to burn structures down to eliminate blight. So that's something that we're going to keep doing. So these are some ways that we can eliminate blight. The other thing that I really think that we need to have serious discussion is our zoning. I think our zoning, there's a lot of issues with our zoning that are prohibiting people from doing things. Our current zoning, for instance, setbacks. We have people that are constantly having to apply for setback variances. In Beaver Falls, our average property, the width of our average property is 30 feet. And, we're requiring 5 feet on each side. And when you go to try to build anything, even a garage, it poses problems. So there's a lot of issues with our zoning that if we don't look at this and don't think about changing these things, people will just get frustrated. I watch people every day. Well, I should say every day, but people, come in our office wanting to do things, and because of zoning, they can't, or they have to apply for variances, which are very expensive, not only for the property owner, but for the city. So these are things that we have to look at. We have to move forward, and we have to look at these things. If we don't, we're going to sit in the same holding pattern, and we need to encourage development. That's the only thing that's going to bring our city back. We've got to build. Yes, we have to tear down and prepare to build, but if we don't start building, our tax base is just eroding.
So this is my ignorance showing, this is Kirsten again, but how do we change zoning? I mean, who's responsible for that?
Well, the zoning, for one, the planning commission would need to take a look at zoning. We need to meet with planning commission. It usually starts with the planning commission. We need to have meetings with the planning commission. We really need to look, honestly, between the city and planning commission, we need to look at our zoning. We just need to look at the whole thing, make determinations where changes would benefit us, and discuss it and possibly move forward with some of these changes. I know all the changes are not going to be accepted by all, but I think we need to at least have discussion on it.
Thank you, that's really helpful.
I'll tell you a situation, and I've had people at least 4 times over the past, let's say 6 months, come in. They wanted to buy property off a repository, property that sat right across from their property, right across the alley, okay? They wanted to buy this property to build a garage. Our zoning prohibits that. Our zoning prohibits that. So the situation is we can continue to prohibit a person from not being allowed to build a garage unless it's on your property. In other words, that becomes an accessory structure and your house is the principal structure. But we can move forward and possibly amend our zoning to say, if your property is within so many feet of a said property, that you'd be permitted to build a garage. So, excuse me, throat's getting dry. The point is, we could take property that right now is blight, property that has overgrown weeds that our public works department has to cut. We could take that property, someone would buy it, put it back on the tax rolls and build a garage, which becomes taxable. Now that benefits us and it benefits the community. It benefits our citizens. But right now we have to tell people no. And that's the things that I'm talking about. Again, I keep going on about the setbacks. How many setback hearings have we had over the last year? People who want to build a garage and can't do it because it doesn't, they can't build a 2-stall garage if you have a 30-foot lot. And these are things that are prohibitive, and it upsets people. It gets to the point where people just get frustrated.
What needs to be done to initiate changes in zoning?
Excuse me?
I said, what needs to be done to initiate the changes in the zoning?
Well, again, we need to sit down and we need to have, I believe we're going to have to start with the planning commission, and that may be a challenge at the point, but we need to sit down and have that discussion. I think on the city side, though, before we even go there, we need to have probably a committee to look at our zoning and get an idea of what we feel are changes that we need. Before we go to the planning commission, we need to have an idea what we think would benefit us. And then we proceed to the planning commission and discuss this. Okay, so they're involved. And then between the planning commission and the city, then we can move forward with making amendments to the zoning. Now, of course, that has to be, that has to be an ordinance, that has to be publicly announced and whatnot. But it's something that's obviously going to take 6 or 8 months to get finalized. But we need to move forward. We do. That's my opinion.
That sounds good.
Now, just interrupt again, Michael Foreman with DCD. We have a Southwest Pennsylvania regional planner, Nick Mackrith, who can work with you at no cost to
Okay.
help you through this process. And potentially, possibly, you could request some funding from us to help pay for the zoning ordinance update. Let me ask a circular question. What is the age of the city's comprehensive plan, which is normally a springboard for amendments to the zoning ordinance or for a rewriting or revisiting of a zoning ordinance?
Maybe 5 years old, 6 at the most.
Okay. Well, that's still relatively new.
2013, Mike.
8 years.
8 years.
Well, it is now. Okay, 8 years.
So just let me know. I'll get you in touch with Nick.
That would be great. Any help we can get would definitely be welcomed.
Okay, good.
There's no sense in us trying to reinvent the wheel if people are out there that have this. I'm all about getting help from outside. I mean, they've been successful elsewhere, they can help us be successful. So
Well,
I'm all on board with that.
It's part of what they do as their job as a
Yeah.
planner.
That would
Yeah,
be
and
great.
just as an aside, that was actually one of the recommendations in the STAMP program study report. So it could be funded, I guess, in a number of ways, or at least considered for funding in a number of ways, because it is one of the recommendations.
Very good.
Right.
Thank
And
you.
the city is now, the city just recently put in a grant request for a series of projects, but it doesn't stop you or hold you back should this current grant request be funded, that you could put in an additional request later this year to help pay for what I'll call a revisiting to your zoning ordinance, to put in amendments that will help promote and bring about redevelopment in the city based upon updated land uses.
Right.
So keep that in mind as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Good information.
Before we jump away from the fire department, I just want to thank Chief Stowe, just because I just as a citizen, I had no idea all of the things that our fire department does on the regular, and the code department. But I just, the more I learn about the fire department that you lead, I'm just really incredibly grateful for the services that you provide for our community and beyond. I mean, you guys are leaders in our county and in our region, and I'm just really grateful for that. So thanks for your time, and thanks for meeting with us when you're not feeling well. So
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you,
I
Mark.
just want to piggyback. My daughter beat me to it, but I just want to say that Mark's a tremendous asset to the city of Beaver Falls. The work that he does at the fire department, the leadership there, the training, it's top notch. And he will be a great asset if we can ever get to a regional idea. That's definitely the way this needs to move. And then his willingness to move into code, not so much because this was something that he was jumping up and down to do, but he wanted to see help Beaver Falls get better. And the ideas that he has, the forward thinking, the way he's looking at this, you can see what he's bringing to the table now. So again, I just commend Mark and know that he will continue to move Beaver Falls forward. Thanks, Mark.
I'll be honest with you though, I'm only as good as all the people under me, and I got a absolute great staff. My firefighters are wonderful. They go out of their way every day. Just tonight, there was a little girl that come home from Children's Hospital battling cancer. They did a parade. All of our firefighters pitched in for gifts for this little girl who lives down on 9th Avenue. It's just these guys, there's nothing I don't ask of them or the city asks of them that they don't do. So it's not me, it's them. I'm only as good as them, and I'm only as good as what the city supports me. So I appreciate it. But again, the credit's due to everybody involved because they're amazing guys. They really are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there's no more questions for Mark.
Happy birthday, Kirsten.
Thank you.
Since we know you're a little under the weather, and there's no more questions, if you want to sign out and go lay down or have a hot cup of tea, we don't want to hold you up.
Yeah, I'll probably listen in for a little while.
Okay, thank you. very much. We
I'm
appreciate
just going to
it.
mute.
All
So
right.
Thanks.
listen to me cough.
Okay, we're now going to open the floor up to the police chief.
You went first, Mark, you always tough to follow. I guess basic description of what my duties are, similar to Chief Stowe. I supervise the daily operations of the police department. That involves everything from scheduling our officers to public relations, budgeting, establishing and maintaining relationships with our other community partners. We're a full-time police department. Currently, we have 16 officers on staff. We also have the parking office out of the police department that I oversee. We have one parking attendant and a clerk. We have Lois Avery, who's our assistant to the chief, but she also handles the coordination of the parking office activity. We with respect to the police department, we have a detective's office. I'm assisted in my supervision through support staff consisting of sergeants and captains. And basically what we do is we coordinate and we evaluate the needs of the city and the other municipalities that we control, West Mayfield and Eastville, and try and determine what the safety needs of those municipalities are. We do that also through coordination with their community leaders. Also, in addition to that, I try and also supplement our officers. I don't just sit behind the desk. I also go out in the community, try and answer calls to help our officers out in their daily duties. We oversee the investigations of all investigations in the municipality we control. Anything from assault, homicide, traffic details, we handle that. I like to, I'm proud to be a part of Beaver Falls because of the history that I came in under. When I came in, was under Chief Jones, he's now city manager. And he laid a great foundation for what I'm dealing with now. I succeeded Chief DeLuca, who retired in June of 2020. So I've been here a short time, but I've done what I can to try and build the department up and maintain what was there before me. I believe in integrity, professionalism. I think that we were one of the premier departments in town. And I would invite anybody to call with the other agencies and coordinate with the department, DA's office, U.S. Marshals, the DEA, our detective's office. We do have a narcotics division that's been very successful in the city with the operation that they've done. And I think that's all been established through made possible through relationships that not just me, but our officers have built up with these other agencies to make the successes we have had happen. Also, our relationship with the fire department, they are a great benefit to the city. And they're great help to the things that we need. If we go into a call, major medical incident, they're always right there to provide the support that we need. As far as the medical side goes, there any specific questions other than, explain at this point?
Is everybody able to hear okay?
I think, probably the same question I had for Chief Staff. Do you see or do you foresee any changes with your duties if and when the city goes to home?
I'm sorry, would you mind speaking up so they can
Yeah,
hear?
because Jerry's looking like he's struggling to hear.
Is it the mask or is it just?
I think it's the mask.
Okay.
It's muffling after you did that whole
I don't know if I can
long.
remove it or just try to speak up a little bit louder.
Use your outdoor voice.
Um, I'm familiar with what home rule is. I'm not completely familiar with the changes that can come about from it. I believe I have an understanding of it. And I don't necessarily think that my duties would change. It would depend on the direction that the city decides to go at that point as to how I would have to change my management style or things that would change as far as the staff management and things like that. Specifically, I mean, police work is police work. You choose to have a very professional police force, or if you don't focus on that, then that can change, and that can be to the detriment of the city or to the police, the citizens that you're providing service to. And to me, anything that I would be involved with, I would want to be professional. I would want there to be specific standards. I'd like to see us have more opportunities to expand our services. But it all goes, I answer to the direction of the leadership. And that comes from the community and what they desire. So, thank you.
Well, there were some recommendations from a study that was done that, can't see unless I put my glasses on, that said to expand the use of part-time officers in the police department to cover overtime could save roughly $10,000. Would that affect any way the quality of service that the department gives?
In my opinion, it absolutely would. I understand that when you look at things from a financial perspective, that part-time looks great. But there's a lot of other considerations, I think, that come with that. Like I said, I came into the department and it was always full-time. And I can see the difference from places that I had worked prior. And I would never take away from what a part-time officer does. Everybody has a starting point. And when you're part-time, you kind of decide, okay, is this work for me or is it not? And your ambition is to move to a department that has the ability to give you the option to operate in a professional environment, to have advancement in your career. I don't know a lot of full-time police officers that want to stay stagnant and just stay control status. They have ambition to learn new things. They want to get into different opportunities in law enforcement, and that's always to the benefit of the community. But with that being said, the climate in policing today is much different than when I came into policing. The communities, the government are all demanding better education, more professionalism, better training. And with that, you can mandate certain things for training, but you don't always get the benefit of having experienced officers to work with every day. Your coordination is better. I can tell you that, when you have an officer that part-time, he might be in your department 16 hours a week, he doesn't know the municipality or the citizens or the community groups or the key people in the community, as well as somebody who's there 40 hours a week, and not be invested in your community because it's another part-time job. Oftentimes what we're seeing is part-time police officers work 3 jobs, 4 jobs, whatever it is that they need to do to meet their financial obligations to get by. And it's not committed to the same municipality. So they go from, municipality A, municipality B, and then it's all blur for them in between there is what they're doing. They're not as effective with investigations. And a lot of that, can fall to management is to say, okay, well, you're going to turn your investigations over to somebody full-time, but what you end up having is a full-timer who went from having their regular workload, and now they're bogged down with everybody else's caseload and investigation. So your focus is to offer quality service. My opinion is you can do that to a full-time department of guys that are committed to your municipality. They come come to work and, you feed their family by working for your municipality. And they're giving that back to your community and the services they provide. The reality is also that with part-timers, you are responsible still to make sure that they're trained to the same standards that you have your full-time vet. You're still responsible to equip that person. So with that, you're training these officers up a part-time status and just watch them walk out the door because they found a full-time job someplace else. So you just basically developed a quality police officer to send them off to a department and give them full-time. I brought up as far as, were you able to hear me a little bit better?
Is everybody on Zoom able to hear better? I got
They're
a
saying
couple
kinda like,
no's and a couple
yeah.
yeahs. It's going both ways.
You're okay. Like I mentioned with the climate of policing today, we're seeing probably what would be, I'd say, the least amount of enrollment in our academy classes at this point, at least in this general area. It's getting harder and harder to recruit people even for full-time jobs. And I can tell you from our last 2 tests, we had 6 people apply for our last one. In the most recent one, we ended up with 4 that actually took the test, and we only had 3 left in that one. That's a severe decline from what it was in prior years, where you would have, some of the other municipalities, they'd have 90 to 100 people sitting for a test. But this doesn't exist anymore. My most recent experience, I went up to supervise a physical agility test. There was a very wealthy area that was hiring a minimum of 2 people off the test. They only had 4 people taking the physical agility test. And that's the norm in our most recent times right now. What that will be in the future, I don't know. But it just seems like people are not really scrambling to enter the police profession anymore, at least not in the current era. So those are my concerns with the consideration of a part-time department, or a hybrid department, so to speak. But I just think that the city itself, if you want quality policing, that's what we will commit to.
Thank you very much. I agree.
I agree as well.
Are there any other questions?
I have a couple questions. Just out of curiosity, how many of our full-time officers actually are residents of Beaver Falls? Do you know? That's kind of okay.
I do know.
Okay.
That would be, currently we have 1. that is
Okay.
An actual resident of the city.
Okay.
That was one of the things that we, took into consideration, and even prior to, my time in the department, was just, you can draw a bigger pool of applicants if they don't have to completely relocate from where they're at. And I think that that's been successful as far as bringing quality applicants to, come and test for positions with the department.
Sure. Sure. It would just be nice to, if we could, obviously you're saying that there's so many challenges already, so I can see how it'd be hard to hire ultra locally like that. So then I guess my second question, and feel free to jump in, DCED and consult with people, but, so what do you, from what you know, how would Act 47 impact our police force if we ended up in Act 47?
It can impact us. As Chief Stowe had mentioned, Newcastle was a department that went through that, and they do have part-time. And that's where we could end up. And I think that, again, like I said, it comes down to is your ability to manage that. If that's the situation, you have to work with what you got, and I'm up to that challenge. It just would be my recommendation to try and avoid that if possible. But like I said, there are communities that have dealt with that, and they have their police force fall back. It's just a matter of hybrid, part-time, / full-time.
It's okay to say that you think it's a bad idea. Sorry, you don't have to, tell us why you don't want that, it's fine.
He's used to being politically
I
correct.
know, you're doing such a good job, thank you.
Just one comment. Cities, third-class cities can have part-time officers. That's Act 47 Home Rule charters don't really have anything to do with that. Either way, you could have part-time off.
Sure. I guess my question was just if we didn't change things and we found ourselves in a worst case scenario, how would that impact the services that our police department provides?
Sure.
Is there any other questions? Mr. Carson, you're quiet this evening.
Sleeping.
I think this was.
Well, I'll ask.
No, I'm wide awake. I'm just, I've been muted. Everybody's doing a great job. The first meeting, nobody would ask any questions, but now everybody's got it figured out, and you're asking great questions, and our people are giving great answers. So good job, everybody.
Thank you.
I have a question. What challenges do you face now as a department and as being in charge of the department that changes to the city structure could help, if any?
As far as its administrative challenges?
Yeah, so like, I mean, if we were to move to home rule charter, there's maybe not a ton that would actually affect you. But are there problems that could be solved administratively or, through structure?
My difficulty in answering that is that I don't have enough, knowledge of what benefits come with home rule structure versus third class city. I've tried to make myself as familiar with third class city as I possibly can, as it came up through the department, just because of contract issues and things like that. From my perspective, perhaps that would be something easier to navigate through the contract. But I really feel that with the officers that we have in our department now, that we've always been able to work together. And those officers are always willing to work with the city, and the city's reciprocated that. So it would be hard for me to say that would change, but I think that there would still be that continuing relationship and the ability to work together. Because, we're not a huge department. So it is somewhat like a family as far as, not just within our department, our officers in the police department and our partners in the fire department, the street department, we all know each other well. And I don't think that would change per se, just because of the change of structure of government. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah, no, I don't, there's no reason why relationships would need to change in any way. I just wondered if you had any issues that could be resolved. But it's okay if you don't.
I really don't. Nothing that I would pinpoint that I think that would specific change.
Yeah, this is something I think we've heard consistently from like pretty much everybody that's come to talk to us, that the relationships between the departments and among the leadership function really, really well. And that's encouraging. And I'm like, the more involved I get in city stuff, the more encouraged I am to see that and to see forward motion. So, yeah. Come get coffee more. You get free coffee, right? You too, Mark.
It's amazing. I have two nephews that earn their living by carrying a weapon. One is a state policeman. The other, you may know, is the Beaver County Dan Wood. And that's amazing to put your life at risk every day for the betterment of others. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you. I'll pass it on to our next. Absolutely.
We thank you all for your service.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen.
Yes, sir.
Are there any more questions? If not, the only thing we need to address now is what does the study commission feel our next topic of focus should be? Should there be any more interviews, or should we just discussion as about what we've learned thus far? Like, just focus for the next meeting, I guess is what I'm asking for. What should our focus be?
I would suggest, that we take maybe our next meeting, just to summarize where we're at. And then, go from there. I mean, that's just. a suggestion.
And I think we should work towards, I'm not saying it has to happen at the next meeting, you know what I'm going to say, but I think we need to make state the question, are we going to propose a home rule charter or are we not? So we need to get at that. But I think Michael's right. First thing, let's just talk out what have we learned and go from there.
Did you have more, Michael?
I was just gonna say, we had talked about that before,
Yeah.
and actually we took a straw vote.
Yeah, we did.
Right.
The difference between a straw vote is, I don't know.
Well, I was still kind of, I need to learn more.
Yeah, no,
So,
Right.
I think I've learned more.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, so.
That's a person I'm interested in hearing from, Regina.
Yeah, our resident supervisor here.
So, I just want to ask either Debbie, Michael, where are we as far as, should we vote yes, we want to move to start going towards home rule? Where are we as far as getting help?
Regard to the grant application that is submitted now, one part of which deals with the consultant services.
Do you want me to log off, Michael, since I put a bid in? We can have this discussion.
Might be top secret, huh?
I can generalize.
Okay.
The city put in a number of requests for funding under the Strategic Management Planning Program. And the application, one part of which is funds to pay for consultant services to work with Government Study Commission and myself to help draft a home rule charter should the Government Study Commission formally vote to go in that direction. The application is currently under review, and I hope to have a decision to the city, back to the city, Mick, hopefully by sometime next month.
Mike, I have a question for you. You had just said to help the commission draft a home rule charter, or you will draft a home rule charter.
Yes, it will. I will call that individual or firm a scribe based upon the direction that the Government Study Commission wants to go relative to what form of government or what type of government they want to pursue to put before the voters.
Yes, okay.
So I would still be involved, as would the consultant, along, working with the Government Study Commission.
Can we do a straw vote now?
Sorry,
I'm sorry, I
sorry,
didn't hear
Jerry,
that.
what'd you say?
I said, can we do a straw vote now?
Again?
No, we don't need to.
I don't think we need another. I think we can just come into the next meeting, talk about what we've learned, and just decide by the end of the meeting what we're gonna do. It can all happen next third Thursday of this month.
And
Yeah.
Tim, can we have it live here as well?
Yes,
Alright.
yeah, we don't have to be Zoom, we can be live. I'm okay coming in.
And just for the commission's information, the way the consultant works with the commission is that you would look at different sections for each meeting. So the consultant would provide you with some information, and the commission would basically make decisions about the various sections of the home rule charter. And the consultant would be responsible for actually writing the charter.
So we just kind of say what we like to see, and they put it into the official correct language.
Yeah, you go through the various sections. So there'll be a section on governance, there'll be a section on, some of the positions like, council positions, there'll be a section on finance, there'll be a section on taxation. So you just basically work through each of those sections and the commission makes decisions about those sections. And then they're written in a format that is acceptable to the commission and would be acceptable for legal purposes.
There was a, in the code for third-class cities, there was a list. And Paula had given, Paula Burdine. Not Burdine anymore.
Sure.
George, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm related to Paula. so-
Oh, are you?
Okay.
That's so fun.
She checked off all those sections that have to be, are required to be in the home rule charter. So
Is there a copy of that in our folder?
I.
Google
I
folder.
think there is.
Go look for that.
I didn't hear what was being said.
We were talking about you, Jerry.
Yeah, we were talking about the section that Paula with the codes had checked off.
Right, that's a document that I put together that I went over probably in October, September, that I think is on your Google access on your website or something. I think I was told that it's there for the public to view as well as study commission members. You know, what I did was I made a presentation on what the third class city code says now, various pertinent sections. And then in the second column, I said, what would it look like under a council manager form of government?
Sure.
And then the third column was under a mayor council manager form of government. So,
I know what you're talking about now. I know which paper it is.
yeah, I mean, Paula provided me some information and I went with it and built on it to provide what I'll call a working document.
Yeah, she just checked off each section that had to be in there.
Okay. Are there any further questions or comments?
Neil, I have a question for Neil.
Yeah.
Welcome, Neil. You have any comments for tonight?
Nope, just taking it all in.
No speech?
No speech.
I usually sit over there. There's no questions in that chair over there.
Oh, there's always questions.
I know.
Usually right about now, actually, when they start.
Yeah.
Right about when it's time to go home.
Yeah, we're a little late today.
They're good.
We're on overtime again.
Yeah, so if all minds are clear, if anyone would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I opened it, I'll close it.
Okay, Michael made a motion. He beat you, Doug.
A second.
Second,
Uh-oh.
Wait,
Neil beat you. You are getting slow. Okay, the meeting.
that's good. It's an active committee. That's great.
Yeah. The meeting is adjourned at 8:18. Thank you all for your participation. I appreciate all the good input. Thank you.
Thank you.
Birthday,
Good
Kirsten.
night. Happy birthday, Kirsten.
Thank you.
I don't know how many times I wanted to take that gavel, just take it.
Very much.